My name is Harry.
And my name is DeVille, and we're J-Tech students who are going to be doing precision measurements on 2 different engine components today.
First, before we even get started, one thing that we always want to consider is safety equipment. So at a minimum, you may want to put on some safety glasses, because to do these types of measurements, there's a probability that you're going to be removing snap rings from here, and also piston rings. And anytime you're doing any type of this work, it could fly off. Not only that, but messing around with the rings, you can actually knock some carbon loose, potentially get that in your eye. The other thing you may want to consider is wearing some kind of neoprene or safety gloves, so that you don't cut your hands on any of the engine components, or get brake fluid or cleaning fluid. I think I screwed that part.
Hi, it's DeVille, and I'm going to tell you some of the tools we'll be using today to make our precision measurements. This first one is an inside micrometer. It's also telescoping. So, for instance, if you're trying to measure the inside of this connecting rod here, you can use a smaller one, of course, and twist the bottom, and it comes out. So you can measure varying bores and sizes. Another tool we're using today is very important. It's an outside micrometer. This one measures 3 to 4 inches, meaning that it can measure at least 3 inches. Lastly, we'll be using these feeler gauges here, these small pieces of metal, and they're precision measured down to the thousandths of inch and millimeter to measure things like piston ring groove clearance, which of course will take precision tools like the ones we have here. Thank you.
Okay, now that we've talked about the precision instruments that we will be using today, we're going to go ahead and start putting these precision instruments into action.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you how to do a couple different measurements using these tools, so that you can get the idea. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to measure piston ring gap. Okay, the tool that we will utilize to do that will be a feeler gauge. Okay, the other thing that you'll need is you will need to make sure that the component that you're measuring is clean a little bit, so that it doesn't have excessive carbon buildup, because excessive carbon buildup will definitely throw off your reading. The other thing that you're going to need is you're going to need some specifications from the manufacturer, and those are going to give you your tolerance specs. So you're either going to be in and within specs, or you're going to be out or not in specs. So there's 2 ways you can do this. As far as ring gap goes, you could do it with the ring actually on it, or you can actually simply just slide them in the side here, so that you can get your gap. Okay? Alright. So this simulates the ring actually being on the piston, and we're going to look and we're going to reference our specification, and we need to be 0.040 to 0.080 millimeters, or 0.0015 dash 0.0031 of an inch. The next thing you're going to do is, I've already done this, but you're going to find the correct feeler gauge, and the correct feeler gauge will actually be able to slip in, and you will feel a slight drag. So this is actually the best one, the best feeler gauge for this. And then again, it fits in there, and there's this nice slight drag. So right now, you go ahead and you'll look at the feeler gauge, and we're at 0.0015. we are at the bottom end of being what's acceptable within our specifications. The next thing that we're going to demonstrate is we're going to demonstrate on how you obtain the piston diameter. So one of the things that I want to point out is right here. This is a black moly coating, and it's on each side of the piston. And then the other thing I want to make a point on is there's two marks right here. What these marks are for is when you want to take your measurement, you want to be slightly below or slightly above. But what you want is to have the same distance so that you know that you're on straight and you're going to get your best possible reading. You do not want to be on the actual mark itself because it'll be slightly off because there is no moly that's been added to those portions, so it would be just a little bit different. So given a micrometer, what we're going to do is we're going to go slightly above. We're going to tighten it down till it stops.
Ryan, I have your link.
And there should be a slight drag, just like there was a slight drag on the feeler gauge. There should be a slight drag. That way you'll know that you got your micrometer set correctly. Next thing to do is going to be to see if you are within specs. Okay, so reading the micrometer on its scale, we are actually at, this is a 3 to 4 inch micrometer, so we're going to start with 3. 3 is given, and then when we read the micrometer, we're going to read over. Our next number is 7, and then we're going to go to the scale and start reading it this way. So we're at 3.75, and then we're going to get our final measurement, which is 3.759, and then we'll go to the vernier scale, and we're going to look for which one lines up the straightest, and it's 5. So we're at 3.7597. So we are within specs on this piston, which means that it could be reused if necessary.
Hi, it's Deville again, and finally we'll be measuring this camshaft load. And as you see, I have the camshaft set here on this base circle. And as you can see, the base circle is just the very bottom. If you can like move the cam over a little bit, it's the very bottom of the cam lobe, right here, at the very bottom, here to here. We'll be getting this measurement first, and then I'm going to measure the lobe height. And lobe height is just from the top of the camshaft lobe to the very bottom of the base circle on the bottom. Just like this. Stay on there. Just like that. And now using these two measurements, once you have them, you get the difference, and that will give you lobe lift, which in this case was 0.3524 inches. Okay, and also camshafts can be damaged in several different ways, but 3 of the most common ways: galling, scoring, and just overall lobe wear. As you can see here, it has some scoring here on these bearing surfaces. I also have an image here of galling. You can see here on the camshaft lobe, it's got damage. That's an example of galling. Another example of a worn camshaft lobe. You can see the one here. You know that's okay, it's the proper height, but this one here has been worn down. This would cause your valves not to open properly. You get misfire and also diminished power. Okay, we've measured the valve, the camshaft lobes here by just measuring the base circle and also subtracting that from the lobe lift. Now, the traditional way would be to take valve lift and divide it by the rocker arm ratio. But because this engine uses bucket lifters and it comes into direct contact with those lifters, there's no rocker arms involved. And so you would just use those two measurements and find the difference rather than using that mathematical formula, valve lift divided by rocker arm ratio. And that's all for today for camshafts. Thank you.